But it was a long, slow process. I
Yeah.
think if I were to go back and do it again with the knowledge we have now, we would have been a lot more disciplined on the platform play early on.
Got it.
It's just a different time now too. We were solving for things, and it's in the tech world was in its infancy, but it's a real challenge. And I'd say there was a lot of technical debt we had to pay for.
Right. And
later on.
that's the point I'm trying to get at too, is that there's not only this technical debt, but there's the culture debt, right? Because if you have built this company over the number of years, and the thing has been like, we'll be pretty much anything to anybody, and then you have to like hit the brakes on that. I can imagine, not only from a process and platform sort of view, but from a culture standpoint, that takes some adjustment, right?
It does. There's the idealism versus we've got to get this deal closed and done so we can pay you guys, and
Right.
and we recruited and developed a very idealistic culture. I think the broader team always knew what we were trying to make. Always. We had a vision for what the platform needed to be. But as a team, I think we got good at, we just come into the conference room and the whiteboard when there was an opportunity, can we take this gig on? And we go through that process. And we would say no. We would say no, but we would own it as a team is what I'm trying to say. We would think through, is this maybe it's a shift in our R&D schedule for the platform. We're getting into this widget before we had planned on it, but is it worth it now? Because it means we can't do the other widget now. So, those are the conversations that would happen constantly. So I think, to come back to the culture piece, I feel like we all owned it, but that doesn't mean there wasn't a ton of frustration from our idealistic developers who always just wanted to build things in a pure way. Does that make sense?
That totally does. Yeah. If you're out there trying to show companies the value that this thing has, and you're trying to at the same time show the vision to your team on why they're doing what they're doing, I've seen such a struggle with entrepreneurs in that case of like, we're client first, we're culture first. What time of the day is it? And then I'll tell you which company we are. Right. And I think that is hard because, like you said, I want to provide this great experience for our clients, and I want to be able to pay you your salary. And there's times in there where it's hard to be that all-in-one leader that can balance both of those things at the same time. I think that's something I see a lot of people struggle with. Not even at that level. I see it happening with project managers, where you got what the team is telling you is right and what the client is saying they need, and you've got to be that person that kind of has to balance,
negotiate,
and do that negotiation, right? So when you're in the middle of the night coaching a filmmaking team versus a development team, I mean, are there certain tactics that you found really work for you? What are some things that you do that gets people? How do you rally? How have you found success when it comes to that?
Yeah, it's a constant real-time re-inventory process of where we're at, right? I mean, literally, I think that's a skill as a leader you develop, constantly reading all the data points that you have. And a lot of it is, you're reading body language, you're sizing up what the work itself is. So like to get specific, I was doing these night shoots, this is 2 weeks ago, this is fresh. And it's really interesting when you're doing night shoots in the summer, and everything's got to be at night. You have a limited amount of time, right? You've got about 10 hours, 9 or 10 hours that it's going to be dark.
Right. And everybody's tired.
And it's almost this inversal situation where the sun's about ready to come up. And you're like, damn, we got to get all these shots in because it won't look like night anymore. It's funny. It's like everything's backwards. And then I was just going through this, we had the end of the work, the shots that we needed, but we literally had 90 minutes of darkness left. All right. So what's the stuff we have? What are some other things that we think we need? And then there's that real-time decision making. Okay, there was this one scene I wanted of the guy crouching in the bushes as the train went by. This is literal. It was just like quick shot, but it would take us an hour to drag all the lights down there and get it lit and whatever. And then we decided, I really don't need that. Let's do this other thing, which was we needed to quickly throw up a green screen to be able to fake out what looked like a police car was in a different location, like this crazy stuff you're doing in the middle of the night. Throw up a gigantic green screen and light it,
right,
to make it work for the edit. So is that, in that situation, it's me as the producer sitting with the director. Yeah, we've both been working. This is the second of 2 night shoots. Everyone's tired. And all right, reinventory. Where are we at? What do we got? What are the different, how long is it going to take for this versus that? Do we really need this? You're literally thinking about the end movie while you're dealing with exactly the amount of time and resources that you have and making a decision. And it's just, I think as a leader, as a manager, it's reading body language. It's trying to reinventory, ask all those questions. Like in a film department, you've got to ask the grips, all right, and gaffer, right? How long is it really going to take to get the lights over here to get this lit? Or let's work on this shot. Can you guys get pre-light over here? So but as soon as we wrap, because we're going to have 20 minutes left, we can zip over here and get this other shot just before the sun comes up. And we did it. Like we made our night, but it was that, that extreme, just listening, reading, understanding, and just reclassifying what is the most important thing. You got to be at all those different levels and make sure you're keeping things safe and you're not pushing things too hard for everybody.
Yeah. So you're losing them, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, with that, I mean, there's the other side of it, but being that coach is also sort of being that person that can detect that they're not all is right. And I'm guessing both on the filmmaking, and this is why I find, your background so fascinating. I've experienced this. I know a lot of people listening have experienced this. What do you do when you know somebody is just not telling you the truth? Like if it's a developer saying, yeah, I'll probably have this done by Friday, and you're like, I know this is not going to be done by Friday. Or like you said, you have a gaffer that'll say, I can rig this in 20 minutes or something. And you're like, there's no way. Well, there's no way this is happening. Like how have you found success in having these conversations where you still need them on your side, but you need to kind of call them on their shit. Right?
Yeah, right. What we learn as leaders is we need to build a team where everyone owns the problem and owns the outcomes together. And I think that's the short answer to it. Yeah. So how do you do that? You don't let your developer lie to you. You've got it. So to do that, you need to develop the trust with him or her in that I need you to give me the right information so I can make the best decisions for all of us. And I think this is the skill as a leader, to not be a kind of overbearing draconian leader, being a leader that's able to really listen, who believes that truth is truth.
Right.
And
very timely. Patrick.
Yeah, exactly. And you are engaged with the broader team to constantly keep soliciting the information and understanding the information, and you ask for truth. Because if that one person is failing you, then the whole team's going to suffer. But if they feel that they can trust you and they know that they're connected to that team feel, that sense of connection, that sense of common purpose, everything changes. They're just not going to lie to you.
Right.
Or they're not going to bullshit you.
Yeah.
So I think that's the skill you need to have as a leader or a manager, which is how do you build those authentic relationships with people? And to come back to the film set, it's really interesting because these are ad hoc teams that get pulled together really quickly. Sometimes you're like, I've never worked with this grip or gaffer before, and we're going to work.
And that happens in software development all the time. Yeah.
So how do you take that, those first few minutes or make those connections where you're looking at someone in the eye and building a relationship with them as quickly as you can? And maybe even saying, hey, for me as a producer, I want you to let you know I'm no bullshit. I expect I won't bullshit you if you don't bullshit me.
Yeah.
Tell me what it is, like it is. I know we got a big night of work in front of us, and let's work hard together to be successful. So it's taking those moments to build that.
And having a deliberate conversation about it, right? A deliberate
conversation.
Not just assuming, right? Which is what I see some people do. And then they trip and fall into this sort of victim mentality of like, well, they never told me. And, they could have said something. Or if you really knew, I get it. Things will come out of left field and you could never have known, right? But I think a lot of the times where if you are really paying attention to the work that people are doing and how they're getting their work done and engaging with them about how they're feeling about that work, you can really see where everything is going to go. It's like a crystal ball, right? And then you're not surprised when the developer says, I think I need this done by Friday. And you can say, look, I don't think that's going to get done by Friday. And I appreciate you saying that it could, but let's talk about what actually will probably happen, right? Yeah. And you got to create that safe area, right? Because my feeling is that when somebody, a designer or a developer or a project manager or somebody is coming to me and I can tell that they're not giving me the truth, it isn't because they deliberately are trying to lie. It's because they're trying to tell me what I want to hear.
They're trying to please you.
Yeah, they're trying to tell me what I want to hear. And that's the moment when I feel like I need to hold up the mirror and say, I have obviously put you in this position somehow. Mm-hmm. Right. I have obviously given you the signal that is more important to me to hear something that I like than versus hearing the truth. And I think that's something I struggled with early on because I had a lot of insecurities as a leader when I first started. Like, I wanted everybody to be my friend, right? I wanted us to go out and have beer and hang out as families and all these things. And that's not necessarily what a lot of these people wanted out of their job.
Exactly. Right. So it was actually more about you than you realized. You were making it more about you.
Right. Yeah, which is the thing I didn't realize is that I thought I was making it more about everybody because I was trying to be more friendly with everybody. But to your point, exactly, it was more self-serving in the end.
Yeah, I mean, leadership is just such an interesting thing. As you get older, I think you become more and more humble about it. It's been interesting for me having just come out of an exit and going back into sort of hustle mode again. Whether it's making a movie or starting to develop some new concepts for businesses. It's so interesting to be right back at the beginning where you're doing everything again. It's just and there's some kind of humility that comes with that. And I was thinking how at peace I am with that and comfortable. It's like so great to go back here again, to be back at the very beginning.
Yeah,
and I think that's also, again, that's that skill of leadership, which is to kind of carry that humility with you. And I think that's body language too. That's the way you carry yourself. It's the level, a lot of this has to do with, being calm and grounded, and people pick up on that pretty quickly. And then, because that then leads to trust more quickly and resilience and, as a team, constantly solutioning and reimagining the way forward. And so I think that's a lot of what we need to carry with us as leaders is that humility.
So let's shift gears just a little bit. So if you were to pull up your crystal ball and what are some of those attributes, skill sets, and things that you think people need to really be focused on in the next 5 years?
To frame it up a couple different ways. Number one is I think we came out of this period where we were seeing this sort of perfect blend of creativity and tech kind of running side by side, meaning it really took some creative minds to sort of imagine new ways of doing things.
I like that you say it side by side, because I think for a long time it was always just a handoff, right? It was like we did some design and then we toss it over. I mean, it's literally where the phrase "toss it over the fence" came from, right?
Absolutely, 100%. And so we went through this kind of golden age of just reimagining everything. That's how something like an Uber was born, or an Airbnb, or whatever it is, where entire business models are sort of reimagined and reconstructed. And it did take equal parts tech genius and I think creative genius to see that collaborating together. I'm not sure that and that will still be a big part of the process moving forward, but I think we're moving into a much more engineering centric, algorithmic sort of era, right? So, and things are going to become less and less, I think, about companies, and they're going to be about ecosystems and different pieces of the puzzle that fit to solve big, complicated, challenging needs. So I think it's going to push a little bit back towards sort of the engineering mathematics sort of skill set, and being able to think in some ways a little bit more both myopically, like how do I build this one platform that does this one thing with a couple of APIs that solves all kinds of problems, but also being able to sort of have the skills to kind of think more broadly about the use cases that you're solving for, right? So whether you're like, hey, we're building this, platform that could serve, the insurance industries and healthcare industries and whatever, human resources, forecasting industries. And so it's much more algorithmic, and it's because we're beginning, we're about to move into, the real AI, period.
Yeah.
And the way things get even built is going to accelerate, and accelerate AI will create better AI, and so layers and layers. So my point is, the more around the engineering is going to be. So I think there's going to be so much more demand for that. I think we might almost see a little bit more abstraction away from the creativity will kind of be abstracted away again, and then the engineering will be here in a different place. So it's just kind of a hunch of the way systems will build. the more well-rounded you are as a creator and entrepreneur is always important. But again, I think we kind of went through this golden era of, 3 people in a startup idea with 3 brains that could really do something.
Right.
But I think it's going to get a little bit more complicated than that again.
Yeah.
It takes much bigger teams with a diverse set of skills to really build
especially
cool stuff.
To make that large impact, right? So I do a lot of mentoring with Techstars and some of the other groups around town, but to that point, exactly, like I still see the 3 people in a room sort of approach, and I mean they're literally when they finally get they've got this great idea and they're looking and they getting an idea of what it takes to scale it.